On today's episode of Things Green, Nick answers viewers' questions. He then shows us how to make citrus candles. Nick then talks about the many uses of baking soda in the garden. Finally, Nick talks about treating trees from within with Nate Dodds, who explains tree injection. All this and more on today's Things Green.
Things Green is brought to you in part by
Super Thrive, the original vitamin solution. 50 vitamins and nutrients. Vitamins for trees, plants, and lawns. More information at superthrive.com.
Southland Sod Farms, creators of genuine marathon sod. Pre-grown tall fescue grass. More information at sod.com.
Dram Garden Products, makers of watering tools since the 1940s. Committed to saving water with handheld tools, hoses, and water wands. More information at dram.com.
With continued support from Cole Tomato Cages, planting, growing, and harvesting. More information at colemetals.com. And by the Radisson Hotel Whittier, with newly renovated rooms and an on-site bistro restaurant. More information at radisson.com. And by the State Farm Youth Advisory Board, supporting school-based, youth-led service learning projects.
Let's see here. Every gardener has them. Oh, I know, tulips. Hey everybody, let's do some gardening over here. We're going to start off with answering your questions. Of course, you go to thingsgreen.com, fill out the form. We'll make sure we get you hooked up with that. It says, we live in a condo and we're not allowed to grow vegetables out in the front. Our indoor courtyard doesn't get a lot of sun. Any ideas? Wow, well, you know my mantra, if you don't have 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, you're gonna have a really tough time growing things that are like tomatoes and squash and cucumbers and anything that has like a fruit or vegetable on it. It's gonna be really tough. However, if you have minimal light, you can get away with growing leafy things. And we're talking things like herbs, basil, thyme, rosemary, especially if you don't want it to flower. So herbs are a really good thing to grow. Anything that's leafy, lettuces, they'll do okay with 4 hours, 3 hours of sunlight. Now, anytime you can do any kind of reflective sunlight, whether that's just walking out and just smiling at your plants and the, you know, or if you were to take mirrors and put in mirrors somehow to reflect the sunlight, or even better still, if it's that deep, dark, get yourself some grow lights. All you need to do is spend around 20 bucks. You get a special grow light that you find at your nursery. It kind of simulates the sun in many respects so that there's a little bit of exchanges of starches and sugars, and then the rest is history. Okay, what do we do now? My nursery sells ladybugs. It seems easier to spray my plants with an insecticide. Do they really work? Well, you know, it's kind of funny when it comes to ladybugs or ladybird beetles. You do buy them in little containers about, oh, yay big, kind of like you buy like cottage cheese or sour cream in. But they'll have holes on the top of it, a screen, so that the insects can kind of breathe. And inside this container, by the way, you'll probably get it out of the refrigerated section at your local nursery, they're kind of in a dormant state. So you want to release these things as gently as possible early in the morning. Now, here's the thing about ladybugs. If you use ladybugs, you got to remember, they're wild animals. You can't put them in a corral. It's like you put a little leash on them and hanging around your plant. Once they eat all of the problems that are in your yard, boom, they're gone. The other problem with ladybugs is this, is that the second that you let them out, they kind of get their wits about them. They have a tendency to fly up 1 mile up in the air, and then they'll open their wings and then they float down. So it'd probably be easier for you to go to the nearest building in your neighborhood, or probably a mountain, point them toward your house, let them loose, and then maybe they'll find the place. You could always give them little tiny pieces of paper and give your address. They'll kind of hang around for a little bit in your yard, but they will actually do that. Now, if you want people and things to kind of hang around your yard, you know, it's something that's really fun to do. That would be creating our own au naturel candles. I mean, think about it. The mood is right. You've got candles out all over the place, and then the kids start screaming. Well, we're going to do this. We're going to create some natural types of candles out of citrus. How cool is that? A citrus candle can be made from pretty much any citrus. You gotta be careful, you gotta be a little ginger how we're going to take and get this all together. And the best part is you don't need too many tools. All you really need is a cutting board. You're gonna make sure that you need a knife. Not a bad idea to have our secret ingredient over here, which happens to be olive oil. So we have a lot of these little things, not a whole lot. All right, so how do we start? Okay, again, choose any kind of citrus you want. If you want to use grapefruit, use grapefruit. If you want to use tangerines. If you want to use oranges. It doesn't matter. What matters though is whether or not it has a stem. Some have very prominent stems, some don't. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. So here we go. We're just gonna take this and we're gonna cut this in a round. You know, if you were to cut it this way, we already know from end to this end, it's gonna be sliced, and we're actually see the actual slices itself. That's not good. We want the actual round. So we're gonna make sure that we put the belly button part of this on this side, we put the stem part on this side, and we're gonna be pretty generous with this. And ooh, is that nice or what? Now comes the fun part. We have to be very careful, and if this does not come out easily, then we're going to help it out. Sometimes you can do this with your fingers, but I noticed that we don't have much of a, look at how messy this is. Is this cool or what? I don't have any towels over here, it looks like. Okay, we're going to take and cut this up like this. And I'm going to be very careful trying not to get to that white center part, because that right there is so important to save. That's actually going to be our wick. All right, let's see what happens here. Can we get this out easily? Oh, nice. Nice, it's coming out. It's what we want it to do. Let's see. Now let's be surprised, and we're going to find out that we don't have a wick in this one, right? Is that possible? Oh, there it is. So this is pretty messy. This is pretty messy, don't have to worry about it. You know, vitamin C, so important. You know, there's a reason why oranges, most of our oranges, I don't know if you knew this or not, develop during the winter time. And we can get them all year round, don't let that worry about you. But there's a reason for that. You know, when they came here to America, something pretty fascinating happened. They started to get scurvy, and they came, a lot of them came during the winter time. So what they would do is that they would take and they would grow actual orange trees inside of on the boats while they were coming. Another plant that we would put, so we have them in our landscape around here, is that they would also put roses, because roses are also instrumental. Oh, look at that. See how it's coming out now? Rose hips, you know that part underneath the flower itself? Rose hips actually have more vitamin C in them than oranges do. Okay, so you can kind of get the idea here. Once everything is done and nice and pretty, this is what it's going to look like. Booyah! See, look at that. Two of them right there. Now, here's the next trick. You gotta have this, you have to have this top like this. Once this top is nice and open, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna wipe our hands because it's very sticky. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna open up our olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Now check this out, we're gonna fill it up. And what I want you to do is to get a little sloppy with the center part, with our wick. Go ahead and we just wanna make sure that it's nice and bathed. If we have to take a little bit out later, we can, that's okay. So, you know, we have ourselves a candle in the making. And if you come over here, you gotta let that sit for just a very short period of time. Look what happens. Ooh, please light, please light, please light. It's gonna light, I'm telling you. Might take a little while, but it'll light. Is it gonna light? It does light, I promise. I've had one lit for almost 4 hours one time. So obviously you can tell these are a little bit stubborn. It'll eventually get there. Come on, it's gonna work. Please work. I bet you're wondering why I have these potato chips here. There's a reason for it, because these things do take a while to start. Obviously we have to soak it. You know, if you were to take a potato chip and you don't have enough, hey, our potato chip lights, why don't you just stick your potato chip in there? You could use your potato chip to actually light this thing and help it go along. So, oh boy. You know, you're gonna have to help me. You're gonna have to understand that this does work. Okay, talk about egg on your face. Man, oh man, and I got a pretty big face for that egg to last. Okay, it's gotta soak a little bit more, but you do have to use the olive oil, and trust me, it does work. It really does. Well, that notwithstanding, let's see what other things that may or may not work in the garden. It all depends on how you look at it, right? That's all the fun part about what we do. Okay, this right here, this particular segment is actually called our baking soda segment. We're gonna talk a lot about baking soda right now. It has a lot of great things that you could use it for in the yard and garden. Of course, baking soda has been around for almost forever. And what's really cool about it is that it has so many different types of applications. And these different applications are anywhere from brushing your teeth. You could use it and put, like, you know, when your dog runs through some weeds and gets some burrs, you take some of these burrs and you put the burrs on, and the burrs will get inside the dog. Put a little, sprinkle a little bit on there. It helps get the burrs out. You know, so it just keeps on going. So how does it help though in the yard and garden? Well, first and foremost, you know, when you have leaves that aren't very shiny, well, what we could do here is that we can take and brighten them up a little bit. And we use a little bit of this. So what we're gonna end up doing is that we're gonna take, let's make a little concoction right here. All right, we're gonna take ourselves a 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And the best part about it is that you don't have to make this like a science or anything like that. We're gonna take a small dash of this ammonia, just a little bit. Yeah, put that in there. And then we're also gonna take a little bit of Epsom salts. And Epsom salts, fantastic for soaking your feet. Oh, on a side dish right here, a side note, if you want these flowers to get bigger and stronger, put about a tablespoon of Epsom salts on the first day of spring, summer, and fall. And you'll see these flowers will actually get quite a bit bigger. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix it up. We're gonna take and we're gonna put a little bit of water into this thing. And it's about 1 gallon of water is what it is we're gonna use, but we're gonna pre-mix this here. All right, then we're gonna take it and we put it right inside of this. And then we shake, mix, all the way around. Watch this. Okay, now that we have it all mixed up, we're gonna assume that this works, because you never know around here, do you? And then we're gonna spray it on our plants just like this on our leaves. You let it dry, you're going to be amazed at how shiny and beautiful they're going to be. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing is this, is that you may get plants. Now this right here is an ornamental cabbage plant. Look how beautiful it is, great looking plant. But if it's an edible one, the last thing you want are cabbage worms. Cabbage worms are insects that love to, they're actual worms, and they'll come around and they'll just take and bite everything up. Well, what you want to do is that you want to make the environment uncomfortable for them. And the way we do that is that we take equal parts of what are we talking about here today? Oh, we're our baking soda, and we're going to take equal parts of baking soda, and then we're going to with actually some flour, and then we'll just take and dust the plants. Is that cool or what? And then what happens is that they'll take, that spreads out the baking soda, they'll come up, they'll eat it, and messes them up. When it comes to a fungicide, you know, when we have problems with our roses or we have other plants that get a fungus on it, one of the things that we can do is that we can get 4 tablespoons of baking soda, a gallon of water, and then you take a little bit of liquid dish soap and you put the liquid dish soap in there. And the dish soap acts as a spreader for this whole thing. And the spread really takes and just puts it all out over the plants, and then it'll suppress all of the insects and the diseases on there. Now, the only thing is that if you're going to go this route, every so often you have to take your plants and you have to wash them off to get all the goobery stuff out. Another thing that can also happen is this, is if you were to use this to test your soil pH, really kind of an interesting thing happens with this, where you get your baking soda and you're going to want to wet your soil a little bit first. So we're going to moisten this up just a little. It has to be distilled water because otherwise you're not going to get a lousy reading. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take some baking soda and sprinkle it on like this. And if it starts bubbling, chances are your soil is below a 5.0. So that's good because it's acidic. If it really starts bubbling like crazy, oh man, you're going to have all kinds of problems. All right, there you have that. Got a lot of great information there for baking soda and what you can do. There's of course more information you can find out online with us over at thingsgreen.com. And you know, one of the things that's really important is that we take the time to stop and smell the roses, and we're going to be doing that right now. And in particular, you know, when I was talking about the fungicides and the worms and the insects and such, something really interests me because we usually think that we got to take and spray all kinds of nasty chemicals around in order to get a hold of insect populations and problems like that. But Nate, that's not necessarily the story, is it?
It sure isn't, Nick.
Boy, I'll tell you, you know what you got going on over here really excites me because I've seen you throughout the years, and to develop something that allows us to attack nasty, horrible insect and disease problems without any chemical actually being sprayed on trees.
That's what we're all about. The concept of tree injection goes back to Leonardo da Vinci.
No kidding.
He was the first documented case of actually applying hazardous chemicals, arsenic, to his apple trees to dissuade people from stealing the apples.
Wow.
They hit the wrong tree, they got very sick. So anyway, we knew that chemicals could be transported through a tree's vascular system.
And this tree has a lot of different levels to it, doesn't
That's
it?
absolutely right. This is an example of a cross section of a tree. Happens to be a eucalyptus, but it could be any tree. And the actual conductive portion of the tree is what we call the xylem tissue, or the outer sap stream of the tree. That transports water and nutrients to all living parts of the tree. And then there are other various zones of the tree, storage wood. These show in this tree that we actually have 3 layers of conductive tissue. And that's the understanding that the practitioner has to have in order to successfully use tree injection, you've got to get into the right part of the tree, so it's going to take the chemicals and distribute it throughout the living parts of the tree.
Okay, now I mean, you know, I talk about it all the time. We talk about natural and organic ways, and in a perfect world that'd be great, but we do know that if it wasn't because of certain types of chemicals, we'd have malaria today. We'd have all kinds of really nasty problems, and I know that we're much more scientific about that. When are we going to be using a situation like this?
We can actually use tree injection in most all situations where we have insects, diseases that are either feeding on the leafy parts of the tree or are actually underneath the bark where you can't get to it with a conventional spray. And the beauty of tree injection is because 100% of the chemical goes throughout the living parts of the tree. We can use a minuscule amount of chemicals to get the job done that pounds and gallons of chemical would be used if we had to foliar spray the tree.
So we're really using a concentrated effort in order to get rid of some problems. Now there are problems that are plaguing literally thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of trees all across the United States. Many of them are regional, and some of them are nationwide. What are some of the nastier ones that you've come across?
You know, with the global society that we live in now, we are finding diseases and insects being brought into the country we have never seen before. And we're having outbreaks of insects by the score that have never been here. Just in Southern California, we've got an insect that is killing literally tens of thousands of trees just in the LA basin. It's a Polyphagous shothole borer, and it's got a list of probably 27 host trees that it loves. There are no natural predators. University of California, Riverside is studying the effects. One of the biggest economic effects is it loves avocado trees. Well, that's a main crop.
And I like my guacamole.
Everybody likes their guacamole, and so we're involved in that with our chemistry. And because it's a boring insect, you can't really spray to treat it. It's got to be treated through the vascular system.
Okay, now when you said boring, not that boring.
Well, it's not that boring at all. In fact, boring means that it actually chews its way into the tree.
Right into the darn thing.
The adult does, lays her eggs, and then the larvae pupate, and they feed on the inside of the tree.
Okay, so we've decided that we have a problem, and we've identified that we have to use a particular part of the tree in order for it to absorb and to take and to move whatever it is that we're putting in there.
Right.
And we have some fun things over here. It looks very interesting. We have something that looks like a modified pipe. We got something that looks like a syringe, and definitely
That's
a
right.
syringe.
The most simplistic form of our technology is the individual capsule. Comes in a package of 24. We'll treat 48 inches, cumulative inches of trunk diameter.
Okay.
And we merely drill through the bark into the vascular system. Remember, we want to drill into these growth rings, the outer growth rings of the tree. And we set the capsule and the feeder tube in the tree and tap it on with a mallet. And then we compress the capsule and tap it on, and it breaks a membrane in the capsule, and the material now starts flowing through the transport system of the tree.
Okay, now what about this right here? Whoops, what about this way? Is this going to be working in the same direction?
Virtually the same thing. It is used more for the production applicators that are treating hundreds of trees. It's an injection device. They get the chemical in a 1 liter container. They take the hypodermic device, suck the material in, and then place it into the pre-drilled hole in the tree, unlock it, and then it will push the material into the tree's vascular system.
And you
Same
need
thing goes for the plastic.
And you need green. You can't use this
It's
on
got to
dead
be
wood like this.
it's got to be a green tree.
Okay, so
That's right.
nothing's going to bring this back, right? So petrified wood,
right.
forget it.
If it's a dead tree, it's a dead tree, and don't waste your money.
Once rigor mortis sets in, that's pretty much the end
correct.
of it. Wow.
That's correct.
Okay. So this kind of technology is in the seconds that we have left over here. Is this type of technology limited to somebody who is licensed to use it, or can the homeowner use it?
It varies from state to state what the regulations are. There are many of these chemicals are relegated to the commercial applicators. In other words, licensed applicators that have state licensing to put these chemicals in the tree. There are lower rate formulations that the homeowner can have. So tree injection, pretty much because it's an invasive technology, has pretty much been kept away from the homeowners. But
bottom line is, ask your licensed landscape professional how to work that. We learned about a lot of stuff today. We found out that we could do a citrus candle, and at least for me, it didn't necessarily light, but it does light, I promise you. It will work. We also talked about baking soda and all the different things that it could do for your yard and garden. And of course, we talked about this fascinating injection technology. Again, ask your licensed landscape professional, someone who has a license that is able to handle this kind of stuff. And when in doubt, always ask the professional. So there you go. All right, so I'll tell you.
Things Green is brought to you in part by
Super Thrive, the original vitamin solution. 50 vitamins and nutrients. Vitamins for trees, plants, and lawns. More information at superthrive.com.
Southland Sod Farms, creators of genuine marathon sod. Pre-grown tall fescue grass. More information at sod.com.
Dram Garden Products, makers of watering tools since the 1940s. Committed to saving water with handheld tools, hoses, and water wands. More information at dram.com.
With continued support from Cole Tomato Cages, planting, growing, and harvesting. More information at colemetals.com. And by the Radisson Hotel Whittier, with newly renovated rooms and an on-site bistro restaurant. More information at radisson.com. And by the State Farm Youth Advisory Board, supporting school-based, youth-led service learning projects.